Good morning. Welcome to the regular business of the Board of Supervisors for April 29th. Roll call, please, Ms. Showalter.
Grant. Schwartz.
Here.
Leyland.
Here.
Kurtenbach.
Here.
Hall.
Here. Please join in the moment of silence to reflect on today's actions. Please stand if you're able to join for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item 1, the agenda received as proposed or as amended.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2, public comments. This is for anyone who's got something to bring to the board that is not on today's agenda. Seeing none. Presentations. 3A, wrap contract, Terrence Campbell from Chief Juvenile Court Officer.
Terrence is joining us virtually.
Good morning.
There we go. We got you. Good morning.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Terrence Campbell. I'm more commonly known as TC, and I'm the Chief Juvenile Court Officer for District 1, which includes, of course, Black Hawk County. Here to talk about our wrap contract, basically that we have with the board as our fiscal agent. And so basically this wrap contract predates my appointment as chief, right? This is something that's always existed. It's all I've ever known, essentially. I did sign the renewal with 6 years of extensions in 2023. So that takes us up to 2029. And we put in $45,000 a year. But lately, last year or two, I think we've only used roughly like half of it. So about 25,000 on average. And so the board cuts approximately 2 checks per month for us. So I'm hoping that's not too much of a burden, kind of 2 checks a month. And it's kind of a symbiotic relationship that we have with the board because we also, for you, we review your detention and GPS GACs, your bills each month. And so because we know what kids go into detention, we know when they come out, and we can accurately account for the number of days that they were there and that you're being billed for. So we kind of have that relationship where, you guys write checks for us, we review billing for you. And so that's kind of been the relationship as I'm aware of it, right? And then I want to point out how invaluable this contract is, how it benefits the community as a whole, right? So we're talking about the most important aspect is that we're able to provide a restitution program for youth. So if we have victims that have been damaged or harmed in any way, our restitution programs is a way to make the victims whole again. So we're able to a youth who essentially would not have a means or method to pay restitution to a victim. Through our restitution program, they can work community service hours, and which in turns they're able to pay off that restitution and make the victim whole again. I think that's a huge asset to this contract, right? That benefits the contract. So there benefits the community as a whole. So I think that in one way, this is it's a feather in the cap for the board, because I think it's as unsung heroes, like the community isn't even aware that this benefit is out there and how they're being impacted, right? But it's for the good. Other things that this thing does, our wrap contract does, is that we provide resources to families, to youth. We've paid rent, we paid deposits, so kids aren't homeless and in the streets. We pay utility bills so the lights can remain on. We buy coats and boots in the wintertime, which is essential, right? We're talking a need versus a want. So, through this wrap contract, we're able to do things that help people uh, be successful and succeed and to live life and to manage and to make it through tough times. And we provide pro-social things like equipment so they can participate in sports at school. That way, they remain in school because that's the goal. If they're not in school, they're in the streets. And so pro-social things like that. So the contract itself provides a lot of things, but it's I don't think as a whole people are aware of that. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on what it's about and how we work with you guys and how beneficial it is to the community. And so we want to see this relationship continue. And at this time, I'll just open it up for questions.
TC, this is Rich Kurtenbach. First of all, I want to thank you for the work you do. A personal friend of mine is a retired juvenile court officer, so I got some idea of the work you do and do appreciate all you do. I did ask to have you do a presentation for us to get an idea on this renewal that we have with the RAP contract. Quite frankly, it's quite scary when someone reads the documents that the fiscal agent that the county does and the responsibility it's placed on the county. My concern is the dollars that pass through here, none of them sticking to the walls for all the responsibility that the court or the county does for the juvenile courts. So I don't know, I just ask your help that there is some way in the future, if there's a way to find out how some of those dollars can attach to the walls as they're coming through the county. This is an awful lot of responsibility that's put on the county with no fee, no dollars for the stuff that we do for the juvenile court. So that was my first concern. The contract is quite scary when you read through this, the implications that can happen to the county. So that was my first concern of what is involved with this renewal.
Mhm. Again, I wasn't involved in the initial conversation for this contract to come to fruition. I know that through some intergovernmental agencies, they do ask for an administration fee or something of that nature. Uh, the way the contracts roll out, because it is with intergovernmental agencies, there's no bidding process, right? We don't have to bid. You can just kind of put the contract in place and work from the language of the contract. So I would do whatever, the board deems reasonable to make you feel, I guess, secure and not afraid or scared of the language and the amount of money that's passing through. Um, but again, in those conversations, I would have to assume the conversations was, well, there's no necessarily a physical or technical bidding process. You guys agree to this contract and being our fiscal agent, and this is what the contract entails. So, having not taken part in those initial ones, I couldn't speak to, but I can speak to going forward. Whatever your request would be, I would listen to and try to come to amenable, agreement.
Thank you. Appreciate you making time to visit with us today.
No problem.
Do you have any other questions for Terrence? All right, we appreciate your time, and we'll, sounds like we'll be in touch.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Item 3B, Sheriff's Office promotions.
Morning, Board. Nate Neff, Sheriff. It's my privilege today. You don't come on up, Bill. At the end of last year, we had the 9 retirements that resulted in a lot of promotions being made. We're finally getting that last spot filled now. I think this is the 13th promotion I've done since January 1st, so we're finally getting that top end filled back up. Just waiting to get the bottom part come back through. Today, Bill White's is going to be promoted to sergeant. Bill's been with us since 2012 he started, 2013. Right in there, did a few years in the jail, then went out on patrol, did about 3 years out on patrol. Did a great job for us there and has spent just shy of the last 3 years in investigations. As part of that, just a meticulous, detail-oriented person, served him well there. He's also been our polygraph examiner. So been integral in screening our new hires and for a lot of the surrounding agencies as well. So he's been kind of a big impact on Cedar Valley in itself. But obviously mostly with our agency on that. Going get promoted, gonna go back to patrol, work second shift patrol for us. So I hate to lose him out of investigations, but I'm excited about the impact you can have on patrol, especially right now we don't have a second shift investigator. So I'm guessing you'll get called on to help out there as well. So with that in mind, gonna have a live step up and pin that on there. Officially make him a sergeant. Perfect. And with that, sir, you are officially promoted. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 4, claims and payments. It's a resolution that the Board of Supervisors approves expenditures, that the county auditor be authorized and direct to issue payments against the various elements of such claims as allowed.
So moved.
Second.
Good morning, board. We did make a slight adjustment this morning, I was telling you about. So our total bill payment today is $1,100,446.62. And out of that, the 60/40 fund, we're paying $6,188.68. There are 2 payments for courthouse security out of there, that's why that's a little larger than usual, plus some utility payments. So routine payments, they just all happen to come at once this time. We are making several payments on our ARPA projects today. Most of them for construction. Heaters for the HVAC upgrade at the health department construction and the IT server room, and that total is $272,149.54. We have kind of a larger payment that Rhodes is making to Subsurface Inc. to purchase culvert liners for Donald Street for $82,345. And then there was one more construction here. There's another payment for construction of the courthouse for $352,302.22. Everything appears to be in order. Any questions today?
We've got a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Roll call, please.
Grant.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Whalen.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 5, receive project updates from department heads and elected officials.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas, engineer. Our roads are in good condition. We just had some very minor washouts, particularly shoulder washouts along the paved road system, the gravel road system, but otherwise our roads are in very good condition this morning. I did want to touch on another topic this morning, and that is some fiberglass culvert lining with UV cure that Michelle just alluded to, that we paid for that. Ryan was actually out on site while this was taking place, so I'm going to let him come up and just share a few minutes of how the process went.
Good morning, Board. Ryan Brennan, Assistant County Engineer. So this is just going to go through some photos of the process. So they did actually take a flexible fiberglass liner which had a epoxy product in it, and pulled that through the culverts. After they did that, they had some kind of bulkheads that they had to put on both ends of those culverts. And then they inflated the culvert to kind of fit and form on the inside of the existing pipe that was there. What we're trying to do with this process is repair some imperfections or some separations in our concrete pipes. So a lot of the older concrete pipes that were installed tend to pull apart. So we have an opening in the joint which allows soil to kind of come in and could cause a hole in the roadway later. So this allows us to just line and seal that entire pipe without having to close the road. So this was all done under just one lane flagger traffic control. So after that, there is this, they kind of refer to it as a train, but essentially it's a UV light vehicle that they pull through the pipe and it'll illuminate, and the epoxy product's actually UV cured as part of that. It's just more of the process, so just a view inside of the vehicle, you know, the truck that they had, so you can kind of see the cameras that were inside as they were pulling that UV train through. And then that's kind of what the end product looks like. They cut it to kind of fit, and it does form to that existing pipe inside. So we did 3 culverts total, so 2 on Donald Street and then 1 on Raymond Road. Total about 82,000 for the 3 of them. So we do have one other liner we're doing later this summer, also on Donald Street. So a different product than this one, but just different applications. So it's definitely an interesting process to see, and we'll kind of keep it in mind in the future and see if that's continue doing. But it was nice for those stretches of road that are very busy to keep them open. The last culvert we lined, we waited till just after 3 o'clock for the shift work at Deere to get out before we started the last flagger operation. So it was nice to be able to keep things open and not, you know, have to detour things. So they did all 3 of those within about half of a day. So went really quick. Questions at all?
What's the estimated life extension of these culverts?
The vendor says 100 years. Obviously, none of us will be around to find out if it's still here in 100 years, so we'll have to kind of take that into consideration and see. I think we know from experience the culvert pipes that we've been putting in, you know, we're not gonna get 100 years out of those. So it would be interesting to see where that tipping point is from a cost-benefit ratio. So.
Brian, just offhand, how much does it cost to put new tubes in, to dig those old ones out and put new ones in? Is it well over $100?
It really varies on size. So these we did a 24-inch, a 30-inch, and a 36-inch. And there's a lot of things that go. I mean, we can spend $10,000 to $15,000 for just the pipe and the material, but a lot of it comes down to having to patch the roadway as well. I mean, we can spend $5,000 to $10,000 just in an asphalt patch. So depending how deep that is, and that's where the last liner comes in. The last one that we'll be doing later this summer, it's 100 feet long, probably about 15 feet deep. So I mean, it'll be a lot of excavation, a very large patch to do. It's also just north of the John Deere site, so it would be a large traffic impact. A lot of things to consider. So they can vary. I mean, we can spend $100,000 on one location, we can spend 20, 25. It just really depends on the site. So it's something we're looking at each time.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Do you have any other department heads or elected officials?
I just did stop.
Yes, I'm gonna give you an update on Senate Title 75.
Yes.
So I had a call with the Secretary of State's office on Thursday, which unfortunately was not as helpful as I wanted it to be. It's not good when I'm providing them more information than they're providing me, but, so I explained what we needed and the urgency of it, and so I did get another email back yesterday. She did confirm what I thought I'm reading in the bill, which is this temporary redistricting commission is just doing that precinct plan. And so, essentially the work is really already done because we did the precinct plan when we went through redistricting. So we'll be taking what we submitted in 21. And talking with her yesterday it's just an opportunity. Sometimes there's special censuses that come up in between the 10 years. We haven't had any. So from what I'm reading from her is pretty much the work's already done. I do have one lingering question, which I said I really wanted to have answered before this meeting, but I do not. But does that include any annexing? Because I would like to update some of our precincts, because we've had some annexing, meaning that, for example, we have a little piece during redistricting that was the city of Cedar Falls annexed part of a township into the city, but they forgot a little bit of a census block, and so, it's only 2 people there, but it's things like that I would like to make our precincts complete in this process, so I'm just waiting for feedback from that, so hopefully I'll get that soon. Because I haven't had a lot of communication with the Secretary of State's office, I've also sent all of what I am reading in the bill over to Brian, just to get that confirmation from Brian as well. Because we are getting into May, and at least I have this information, I would like to put the resolution on the board agenda for next Tuesday, May 6th, to appoint the board. And so my recommendation would be, again, to have myself, Natalie with GIS, and then another person in the auditor's office, probably the plat room, because they're the ones that are responsible for that annexing. So I plan to put that on the agenda on Tuesday. If I find out anything different, I'll certainly let you know. But I've been equally frustrated not getting the communication and the guidance from the Secretary of State's office. So doing what I can to make sure that we're moving forward as required.
And again, that commission just sends the precinct information to the Secretary of State, who sends it to Legislative Services, they create the map, and then they send it back to the
Yes,
board for
yes,
consideration.
this commission is just responsible, that I know for sure, is just responsible for the precinct plan. The Secretary of State's office did confirm that we are not, this commission does not draw the representation plan. So we are just essentially sending our precincts and those populations to the Secretary of State's office, and then they direct LSA to draw those maps. And those maps are required to be drawn and submit to you all by the end of the year.
So the recommendation that you're going to make on these 3 individuals, the actual work that they would be doing, and the reason you've selected them is, how would you answer that? I guess when we're thinking like the public, there has been some public interest thinking that they would be willing to do this and that type of thing.
Yes, like I said, essentially the work's already completed, so we are really just listing all 59 of our precincts and then adding any of that annexing, so it's really a staff component. And then putting the population on those precincts and sending it. That is really it. The reason why I'm recommending our office is because we're the ones that did do the redistricting process, so we're familiar with that. It's always good just to have somebody from GIS, in case I don't know, we might have to submit shape files, which Natalie would have those, so that would be why I would recommend making that recommendation.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
You said shape files?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just like a JPEG of the actual precinct,
Oh,
so that they can see the boundary of it when they're drawing the maps. But the Secretary of State's office, again, has those. We submitted all of this in '22, and because we haven't done any special census, there's really, I know we have less than 5, and they're, just a little bit, but I appreciate the opportunity to get our precincts updated.
Very good. Any other department heads or elected officials? All right. We'll move on to item 6, minutes approved for the work session and budget hearing of April 21st, 2025, and the regular meeting, April 22nd, 2025.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 7, consent agenda. The listed items will be acted upon by a single resolution without separate discussion unless someone from the board or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately.
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a roll call, please.
Leyland,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Item 8A, resolution of the renewal agreement between Blackhawk County and the employee Family Resources for Employee Assistance Program and Wellness Program Services effective July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, with a 5% increase, which is $400, for the Employee Assistance Program be approved as recommended by Amanda Fesenmeyer, Family Resources.
Good morning, Board. Sherry Dahlmeyer, Senior HR Generalist for Amanda Fessenmeyer. We are asking the Board to approve the 5% increase from fiscal year 2017 to fiscal year 25. We didn't have any increase, and this is the first time that we will have this increase for the fees. And based on the last utilization report that we received from EFR, we actually have an increase of the utilization of family members. This is a very good tool for not only for employees, managers, and supervisors. This is also open for the family members of employees within their households. Can you answer question at this time?
So I was just wondering, how long has this county had the EAP?
How long has it been there? Well, as far as I know, since for 9 years at least.
Tim Jamison, Systems Real Estate Tax Manager. I used to pay these, now HR pays these. As far as I know, it's been at least 15 years and maybe longer. My records end at 15 years, so it could be longer.
As far as you know, and if you don't know, that's okay. Is there a pretty good amount of usage
Yeah.
with us? Okay.
There's been an increase, so as I've said, for the family members utilization, it was 5% last year, it is 18% this year. And then for the employees, it was an increase of 10%.
Okay. Thank you.
Alfred, motion to approve?
Second.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a resolution. Roll call, please.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 8B, a resolution of the pre-construction agreement between Blackhawk County and the City of Waterloo for project STP SC007 177-5E-07 for HMA resurfacing on Donald Street with an estimated reimbursement of 25% of the total project cost. Be approved and direct the chair to sign for same as recommended by Catherine Nicholas, County Engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Good morning, again, Board. We are again referring to that Donald Street project that we are sharing with the City of Waterloo. 2 miles of it is a split jurisdiction with the City of Waterloo. This is next year's 2026 project. It is in our budget. It is in our 5-year plan. We have received their signature, and now I'm asking for your signature to this agreement so we can turn in our paperwork and get this project to fall letting with Iowa DOT. Can I answer any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a resolution? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 9A, resolution to approve the abatement of property taxes, September 2024, March 2025 installments for parcel 8914-24-427-003 at 815 Orchard Drive, Cedar Falls, nonprofit organization, Generations Church, Inc., for $14,530.
Morning, Board. TJ Koenigsfeld, Assessor. They took possession, the Generations Church took possession November 29, 2022. And don't believe that they understood that there was a exemption form need to be filed with our office by February 1. That property became taxable for the next 2 years. They did file January 28, 2025, so we do have it exempt for the 2025 assessment year. But there's 2 years in between here, so you're looking at the 2024 tax bill that's currently sitting there now. Is there any questions on my end?
You said the paperwork has been filled out for this?
Correct. Moving forward, correct.
I know, I assume that you're here today to speak to this or a little
Yes.
bit of how this came about.
Yeah.
What happened, yeah, please. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your church as well.
Yeah, thank you, Board, for having us. My name is Jeff Ream. I live in Waterloo, 949 Nancy, Waterloo. This is our treasurer, Jeff Hutton. I brought him with me because I am not like you guys. I'm not the business. I'm the heart of it. I grew up here. I'm here because, like you guys, we love our community. We love the Cedar Valley. I was a worship pastor for years. The Lord called me to plant Generations Church with the help of Hope City and Pastor Q. And so we launched, and we're trying, one of our biggest motives is we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So we serve. We partner with Love Inc. and we deliver mattresses. We partner with the Northeast Iowa Food Bank, and we have serve projects all the time. I think we partnered with one of the schools and did backpacks, and we did coats and hats and gloves like a lot of people. But we just want to serve and love our community. It's completely on me. I've never launched a church before, I thought that I had done everything that I needed to do, filing with the state for everything, and then we got a bill for $6,000, and I thought, well, that's not right. So I did the thing that I did, and I ignored it, and then we got a second one, and that's when I gave it to our treasurer and said, I think we need to address something. There's something not right here. And so that's when we contacted the Board of Supervisors office and filled out the paperwork and got it all in. Honestly, because we're a new church, we're just a couple years old, you guys are talking big numbers. This $14,000 would cripple a small baby church. It would tie our hands from being able to serve our community. So we just, ignorance is not an excuse, but that's where we're at with that, where I just didn't understand and didn't realize that we had to file that with the Board of Supervisors and with that. So I fall at the mercy of the board here and ask for abatement of that.
Any other questions?
And you're signed up for it going forward.
We are, yes. Thank you.
And I guess, TJ, there will be another billing and they will have to come before us.
Correct,
if we want to
yeah.
forgive
Yeah,
that. This
typical
is not-
protocol in this is you're abating the taxes that are currently due. There'll be a tax bill that comes out this fall. You will wanna look at that then as well, and you'll probably wanna come back in unless you decide to just do it on your own, however you wanna handle it, but it'd be something that comes before the Board of Supervisors again. Cause there's no dollar amount yet for the future tax bill.
Can't abate something that you haven't received or the taxes haven't been calculated and billed for, so you would have to be back. And it might be good for an update as well, a lot can happen in a year. So,
Yeah, you'll receive another tax bill in August.
yeah,
Okay.
don't disregard that one.
All right, do we have a resolution?
A motion.
Need a motion.
Motion on the resolution?
You take the vote, I mean, so.
Yeah. I'll move to abate them.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. We'll do a resolution, a roll call, please.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes,
Brandt,
Yes.
Yes. Item 9B, motion to approve the invoice for repairs to the Washburn water main in the amounts of $7,220.68 as submitted by Michelle Weaver, Finance Director.
So moved.
second. You want to provide an update on that, I guess, just for everybody's benefit? I can share what I know. So Waterworks was out to do some repairs, and they realized the main also needed repairs, so that is our responsibility to pay for those. So that is why we have this bill, and we knew there were repairs coming, we did not know the cost until now, that's why I couldn't have you approve it ahead of time. Repairs have been made, I think everything's working fine now.
Good. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 9C, resolution of the revision of the notice of privacy practices for group health plan and authorize its publication on the Human Resources webpage and annual open enrollment be approved and recommended by the HIPAA committee.
So moved.
Second.
On behalf of the committee, we would like to ask the board to approve this revision. This notice is being issued to comply with the requirements of the privacy rules under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And once approved, it will be posted and the updated HR webpage and added to the annual open enrollment process for employees to review and receive while they are making elections to continue, change or discontinue benefits under the county's group health plan. Can I answer questions this time? I would like to take the opportunity to remind all employees that this Thursday will be the start of open enrollment. That will be from May 1st to May 31st. Human Resources will be sending out communications to all employees as to the instructions and if there are updates. We just want to remind all employees that either they are waiving or enrolling for coverage, they have to log in on EASE and complete their enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we've got a motion and a second on this. So roll call, please.
Leyland,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Item 9D, resolution to waive the formal request for proposal process and approve 10X Software Solutions as the county's official electronic poll book vendor as recommended by Karen Showalter.
So moved. Second.
I've met with each of you on this, but just to recap on a couple of things, the reason why I'm wanting to waive the RFP process is just because there's only 2 vendors that do this in Iowa, so going through the formal RFP process would not be a good use of our time, because again, there's only 2 vendors that can do this work. We're currently with one and wanting to switch to the other. It's just a better product for our voters and for our precinct workers. This new vendor is about 3 to 5 years ahead of our current vendor, so just wanting to have the best product that we can for our voters and precinct workers. The good news is we already have most of this budgeted in our 5-year capital plan. We're short about 16,000, but I'm committed to absorbing that in our regular budget, not here to ask for any additional funds.
Appreciate your diligence on this. Yep, innovation is great.
That's great, yes, thank you.
3 to 5 years is a lot, I was gonna say, as far as an advancement in technology, so it's great.
And it sounds like some of the pieces can save us in the long term, including some of that hardware.
Yes, the biggest thing is that we're gonna move from laptops to iPads, so that, I mean, we can get an iPad for $400 where a laptop's costing $1,000. So just that, I mean, yes, we have to buy them all up front, but that is going to be a long-term savings. Laptops typically are about a 5-year lifespan, iPads are more like 8, so we also won't have to replace them as much. With going with this new vendor, we'll be using thermal printers, meaning that we're not gonna be spending thousands of dollars on toner going out to all of our precincts. So definitely long-term savings and just, like I said, just a better product. I don't want to not be on the cutting edge of that, so.
Thanks to you and Al. I was gonna say that you kind of teamed up and came up with all this, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Al.
Karen, you said, what other, the bigger counties were also using this stuff too, right?
Yes, that, definitely. So, Polk County and Lynn County are actually, each of them are on their own. But Story County's on it, Dubuque County's on it, Cerro Gordo County's on it, Scott County's on it. There are, out of the 99 counties, so 10X just came into Iowa 2018, 2019. But now they've got over 30 of the 99 counties on board. So they've been doing their job.
Oh. Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I did a demo with them when they first came out, and they weren't quite there yet. I did feel like they were compliant, frankly, and so I was happy to see that. I did the demo because we were needing to replace all of our laptops, so to do my due diligence, I looked at both, and they've come a long way, so I'm excited.
Well, this is funded over a 2-year period, so you're gonna be doing this in 2 installments? Or no? You're correct, it's been funded over 2 years. I think we're gonna wait until July and do it all in the same year, so we'll have some carryover. Okay, I think you said they were fine with that, just the.
Yeah, they were gonna work with us either way if we needed to pay in 2 payments, but talking to Michelle, it seems to be cleaner to just do the one payment July 1st, which we're fine, that will still give us enough time to implement it for the city school election. That's the other thing too, that we, without exaggeration, we spend 60 to 70 hours prepping all of these laptops before each election. We'll be able to easily cut that in half, move into this new program.
Thank you.
They have everything ready for delivery? Like upon
Yes,
payment,
so,
There's no chance?
I did ask that, I was a little nervous about tariffs and buying a bunch of iPads. So I did follow up with them to make sure our estimate was not gonna change before I brought this to the board. And they have everything in inventory, so they're just gonna hold it for us, because I can't receive anything in until July 1st. But I'll talk to them and let them know that we're ready to go, and then they should be able to ship everything to us July 1st.
So we purchased the iPads through them?
Yep.
Okay.
We purchase everything through them.
And as
And so
replacements are needed, it still comes through the company, or we can?
The company, yep, because then they support it, but
Yeah.
I was just, honestly, I was just nervous if we had I wanted to know that they had all these items in inventory.
I'm just standing by in case you guys have any second questions.
Anything you wanna add?
Al, you IT director, I'm super excited about the prospect of this. So it is going to be so much more efficient than the current system. No issues with the security. I think it's just a better product. It's gonna be easier to manage. We can push out updates instantly. So it's just superior in every way. So
A lot more
100%
stable,
support.
the stabler platform that it's operating on then.
Oh yeah, it's just the Apple iOS, so it's in a kiosk mode. Even if one were to be lost, you couldn't do anything with it. It's locked in its own little app mode, and we can actually remotely turn it off if we wanted to. So yeah, it's got so many good features. Karen hasn't even touched on some of the cool features that it can do. It's been incredibly robust. I'm very impressed by it.
All right, so resolution, roll call please.
Brant,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. We did have a motion on it, right?
Yep.
Okay, just make sure. Item 9E, discussion possible board action for engagement of Navitas Health Solutions LLC in a statement of work for settlement recovery services, under which agreement Navitas would be entitled to 25% of settlement proceeds actually obtained by Navitas for the county, that the chair be directed to sign.
We would like to ask the board to approve the class action settlement recovery statement of work as recommended by the county's pharmacy benefit manager, Navitas, and our benefits consultant, Stacy Wonderscheid. In discussions with our finance director, Michelle Weidner, and Tim Jameson from the auditor's office, it has been agreed that we will opt in for the full service, in which the county agrees to pay a fee of 25% of any settlement proceeds, which will be deducted prior to payment, and which will ensure Navitas pulls necessary claim data to ensure the information is filled for eligible settlements on behalf of the county. May I answer questions?
There's no money that's going into it, no charge, it's just if we get the chance of getting some monies out of the settlements.
There will be no charge for us until we have the settlement, and it will, whatever it will be deposited to our account is net of the 25% fee.
Are these from like prescription drug overcharges, or what is the?
That's what they say in the claim, most of the overcharges in the prescription.
And Mike, you reviewed it, I think that was
I did take a
also
look
pretty
at it. Typically, with these types of class actions, it's not practical for an individual county to take actions on its own behalf. It would be cost prohibitive. But because they get everybody together under this agreement, gives you a chance to recover something where you otherwise wouldn't recover anything.
I move that we accept this.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second.
Thank you.
Let's do a roll call.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Item 10A, FY 26 Community Services Funding. Michelle was gracious enough to send around a sample form, evaluation form. Where did this go? Yeah. Do you have that somewhat available you can pull up? I've got it up on mine, but.
It'll take me a minute, but I'll find it. In the meantime, we've talked about all the categories that we have listed. Everybody want to keep those, or is there anybody that wanted to remove anything, or shorten the list, or whatever? I mean, I'm fine with
I'm okay with
keeping all
categories.
public purposes that Mike had identified in there, but it just makes it problem. But if it works, it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, not that we want to narrow it too much.
No, and that would be even more difficult. Probably.
Yeah, I think leaving it open, it allows the applicant to sort of make their case for the dollars, and then it's our job to, I guess, weigh their community value.
I just remember when Mike created the list, it was for us to be selective and if what we wanted, but I think leaving it open just gives us more opportunity in the community, I guess, for, like you said, their usage or whatever. You got thoughts or opinions on it?
And
Okay with the list?
New to this, so I'm absorbing a lot right now.
I mean, every year we have
Yeah.
400,000
No,
requests. I mean,
no, only the last year or two, maybe that.
yeah, every year I've been here, we've had a few $100,000 in requests, and I do think that for these dollars, there might be a value of just saying, don't ask for more than X amount. With that said, looking at the evaluation form, if realistic cost is a portion of the grading criteria, then
Should
their
we
proposal would be.
that if so much was allocated as budgeted in the budget, would that help, when they see actually the amount that's kind of that we'd be looking at to distribute, might help them look at their individual ask and not think, okay, we're gonna ask for 70,000 as some have, or 50,000, if they know the pot's like 100,000, might help. I guess
Maybe.
this might be a trial or
Yeah,
pilot
I
year.
mean, I definitely think we should require more specificity in their proposal, that for us to just, I don't say underwrite programming, but for them to not give us a specific task makes it really difficult for Mike and Michelle to execute that contract. There becomes a lot of back and forth, a lot of staff time invested into this. That's probably avoidable if we're very clear on the front end, that this needs to be for specific projects and that the funding needs to be outlined.
That was one of the things I know Michelle and I talked about. I don't know if Michelle, you want to say anything to it, but I think she was wondering too about making it very clear at the front end of the application, or talking about that this is a contract for services or something, to that effect that Mike and she could create, but something that would make that clear so people realize this will be a contract, there will be services needed to be provided and that type of thing, just so it's upfront and no questions, few questions.
It felt like there were a lot of entities that feel like this is a donation and not understanding that as a government, we can't make donations, we can purchase services. And so it's, there's been a learning curve, I guess, with the agencies about needing to provide documentation and those kind of things. So I think I would like to work a little bit on what goes on the website with the application to emphasize some of that information.
There'll still be a lot of questions, but at least we'd be trying to put as much information as you can kind of beforehand, even before they apply, so they know. We like the idea.
Finding the applicant.
That's what I'm wondering, so it's like, it's all right, we'll continue discussing.
I have the evaluation.
We talked about committee versus.
You do have the evaluation?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay, super.
If you'd like to look at that,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
That would be, because
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Gremlins in my computer.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Alright, so
And, I mean, this isn't exactly pretty, it's just something I had put together to start conversation about how you might choose to evaluate applications that are turned in. We mirrored as much as we could all those public purpose topics, I guess I'll say, that were in the application. And so one of the difficult things about doing this was giving you a tool to evaluate what might be completely different purposes. So you may have one thing that's an economic development project, you may have another one that's aiding immigrants, for example. And so to compare and evaluate those is not necessarily easy. That is how we tried to draft this. There were 4 things, I think, that the board said they would be graded on in our last application. Those are the 4 topics on here. And we clarified, for example, promoting economic development and community development in the county. You have the opportunity to score it as, are the needs clearly identified, quantified, and do you have defined project goals? What are you going to do? What would you call success? Those kinds of things. And so we've gone through each of those categories. We've assigned point values by category so that you can break them down, evaluate individual options, and hopefully then we can get to scoring that will help all of you in evaluating them.
So we could do that, or we could just give them, looking at those characteristics, give like a 40 or a 30 or whatever. I mean, it's kind of individual preference in that case, but allowing all of us to have it.
This is really just a tool to
To help
help
us.
you,
Yeah, to help
in whatever works for you.
Yeah, looking at some of those EDO, the Economic Development Organizations, I think are gonna be somewhat hamstrung a little bit on that project impact, number of Blackhawk County residents expected to be directly impacted. I think last year, for instance, Gross Cedar Valley, we did a population study. There's value in participating in that study. I don't know that you're gonna, unless you put 131,000.
Sure.
Right, what's the?
I guess if that's what they feel, well, that's kind of, I mean, it's impacted the entire community, that's what they're making, so.
And that's only one of the characteristics
Yeah.
of the project impact.
Yeah.
So that particular thing may be able to score higher under the other 3 factors under that category. So hopefully it will be an aid to you.
It's a place to start. I thought they could all end up saying that, I guess, ultimately, that it's benefiting the whole community and throw in 131,000, but.
And I would view it as Michelle alluded to, like that this would be just kind of a tool, this wouldn't be like the decide factor.
Yeah, I don't necessarily wanna say we've got this many dollars to go, and so we're gonna allocate dollars based off of that. I think that gets too rigid.
Based
But
off this, you mean?
Yeah, if we just take the cumulative percentage and say, okay, this is that gets a little tricky, but it does, I think, help us look at a list of 20-ish applicants and help to see, all right, these applications did rise to the top, and let's have maybe some conversations specifically about them.
What is the requirements for someone making a request? That they have to be a nonprofit, they have to be,
They don't have to be a
No,
nonprofit.
they don't have to be.
okay.
They gotta make their case.
They typically are. I don't think we've ever had one that really wasn't. I was gonna say they are nonprofits or individuals serving them. But most are businesses. And we can always change it the next year, I guess, if we see it's that difficult. But, yeah, just looking for tools to help us kind of make the selection process easier and not be so lengthy and be able to get it turned around. And I just look at this as kind of a screening device or something to help us if we do get a large number in, making sure people are compliant, and then seeing if we have some that rise to the top, and then maybe we have to look at it again for what we can do.
I think part of the strong impact that this funding has, and it's, small compared to other larger foundations and stuff, is that that there is some kind of flexibility from here, and so that's I know there's been vocalized a desire to have a more refined process, but I honestly I think that a lot of foundations kind of get it wrong they just use a inherited process that's been passed down from foundation to foundation that really becomes too cumbersome and doesn't allow for innovative funding, and so.
They have to show what their expenses have been on with our dollars then?
Yeah, they're reimbursement dollars, right, so.
Those were some financials and things like that too, we've got in here, so, yeah.
I think maybe one thing to add under the scoring under the budget, and it's sort of kind of captured, if they can demonstrate that this funding is directly leveraged to secure other funding, I think that's a powerful argument.
And we did ask the questions in the app that to provide the detailed budget as an attachment, but does the funding request leverage other funding? Is it a matching requirement to receive other funding? If yes, how does the project leverage the funding dollars awarded? So there are some questions to pull that out. And then their most recent audited financials, which sometimes gets to be a little tricky, so if it's an individual that isn't audited or some service that's not audited, but
Yeah, some of these are pretty grassroots organizations, which is great because they're connected to community, but they are, and last year we had an applicant in particular that it took a little bit more hand-holding than we normally go through, but they're better served by having us be there. They're really set up much better for the future because of our dollars that.
we did have some concerns about a few that we had funded as well. I think that maybe changed course or something midstream, and so that was an issue that we kind of wondered about if they do something like that, all of that. So those kind of things, maybe we just need to be clear going forward. This was the mission they approved, and sorry, but if you do that, don't ask for funding, I guess.
Yeah, I think.
Till next year.
Right, and crafting that communication to them that our reward is for our decision is based off of these services.
Yeah, that's where that contract comes in to be productive.
If there is a change in the services, then. So, next step?
No, I just, I'll get it done.
Michelle, you had mentioned that you would like to include some language on the front end of that application before we open it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can work on that, and I finally found the application.
Okay.
If you wanna look at it, we can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mike, I know you and both spent a lot of time on it.
I think I'd be fine if, Michelle, you and Mike, sort of fine tune that language on the front end to add the request for specificity. And bring that back to us for final approval, and then we can open up the process for applicants.
Okay.
We're still looking in May, by the end of May for applicants.
So open it up by the end of May.
We can,
If we can,
yeah.
I would assume we can get that language added here in
Fairly soon.
the next couple weeks.
I would hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it'll take us too long to do that if you don't want any other major changes to it, so.
I agree.
Yeah, good.
Very good. Work session 10B, evidence processing and storage facility.
I was gonna say, I know I put it on the agenda knowing that we were wanting or expecting to do some kind of action possibly next week or soon, and so I appreciate very much, I was gonna say, you met with some others, and I just thought, when I had some additional questions, it was I thought today, if you, I know, met with Mike and Michelle, if there were any updates or changes or whatever, their communication, yours, so first and center, and then I'll ask you some questions, and others may have questions as well, so, thank you. very much
So
for
I
being
know, after we met last week, I know Mike emailed the board several of the things that would kind of comb through the 2080 with a fine tooth comb really, and found some things that would like to change or offer to suggest on that. We haven't had a chance to go through the city's attorney or bounce those off of them yet. I think Mike was kind of waiting for your input to make sure that everything looked good on you before he reached out to the city on that. So if everybody's good with those changes or suggestions, or has had a chance to look them over? I'm guessing you'll get with Marty on that then, Mike?
I think he just got them out to us yesterday, so I don't know.
But I think
Anyways.
there's also an important additional consideration here, and that is, you know, how much money is being approved.
Oh,
and
sure.
Where, and on what kind of payment schedule, because that was something that the three of us, you know, none of us have tried to put our thumbs on that scale, that's up to the board. And, you know, just the other things were suggestions, if and when the board decides to go forward with this.
And the one thing on that is, I've talked to the water officers and I'd be happy to stand up here and speak to, but, talking to the city, the overall dollar amount really isn't a hang up for the city. They're gonna build their building regardless. It's an opportunity for us to share and for both of us to save a little bit of money. You know, it was mentioned, was it last week, we were with the $750,000, if that would go through, they're good with that. We originally talked about not kicking anything on an annual basis, with lower amount, maybe we could help offset that. One thing I did do is I went through just as somewhat of a comparison, at our range training facility, between internet, utilities, garbage, all that stuff. It's about $10,000 a year for us to operate that. So presumably, if we built our own building, the operating costs are gonna be somewhere in that neck of the wood with the alarm, with everything else. So my thought was, instead of, if we ever had to build our own building, it'd be about $10,000 a year just in operating costs. If they're good, which they said they are with the $750,000 up front, and the original 2080 said 15 years, we've talked about making that 50 years, and the city's good with that too. They understand 15 was way too short, so if we do 10,000 a year, whether we throw it at half of that 50 years or the whole 50 years, I mean, by the time 25 years down the road, $10,000 probably isn't really gonna amount to much of anything. And that's something I feel strongly enough about this that I would find a way to eat that out of my budget somewhere in there, so I wouldn't be asking for any additional on that. So hopefully maybe that kind of helps alleviate some concerns on that end. We've talked about other dollar amounts, something I didn't realize, and I might let Pete, you're gonna talk on, just the amount of things they have in their lab. Any lab that we build is gonna be pretty basic with what we have, as a certified lab, the amount of.
Yeah, Jason Beaker, Waterloo PD. Yeah, just to talk about the lab equipment we have, we probably have over $1 million worth of lab equipment already that we'll be bringing into this new building ourselves. Also, we talked about the partnership and what we can provide. There's only 2 accredited labs in the state right now. One being the DCI, 2 being the Waterloo Police Department. You think of all those other large agencies, they're not accredited, and we are. So we'll have that experience and knowledge to also pass on to your investigators and your lab personnel. So it's a win-win for you folks, actually, if you really look at it. So.
Well, now Nate, when you mentioned the 10,000 a year, that's just for our lab, our own lab? Is that what you mean, or processing?
Right now, that's what we're paying out of our range. So not necessarily apples to apples, but just to give a rough idea of if we built a lab.
If we had built that.
If we built it our own.
Okay, gotcha.
We'd
That's,
still have internet we'd have to provide.
yes, we still have an
water,
alarm, we still have
heat,
utilities, we still have water, sewage, everything. So that's what I'm saying, if we build our own for even more money, we would still have that 10,000 a year. So to me, that's kind of a wash that we'd be paying anyway.
So what's the lab that we have now, the space we have now, and I assume that we stopped using that at this point?
Well, the main part that most of our stuff that we process is bigger stuff. That's at the impound over here that doesn't have heat, air, ventilation, any of that stuff. So I mean, utilities, everything is pretty nil on that because we're not keeping a climate control.
I assume we're still keeping that though.
What's that? Yeah, we'll keep that for cold storage and for, if there's some longer term stuff that we're not too worried about deteriorating any of that kind of stuff. The big thing is we can't process anything there. And they do have a small lab within the sheriff's office that's getting dated. It's kind of hard to put a price on what we're paying utilities and stuff wise on that because it's.
I don't care about utilities, I just meant as far as equipment and what it takes to run that lab and what our plans are for that
What do we
lab.
have in there?
I assume we're not gonna utilize that anymore once this is done.
The equipment we have in our current lab, I believe we would have maybe one piece, maybe a microscope that would be transferable to this new building because all of our equipment is
Sorry.
outdated.
Okay, so it's that outdated,
Very.
so we really aren't using that lab anyway, I assume.
We're making do with it, but there's a lot of stuff we're not doing in it because we can't, because we don't have the equipment.
And so where are we doing that now?
We would send it to the state
Okay,
and they would process it at their lab.
okay.
Yeah.
Anything in that lab was there when the building was built in the early 90s, so.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. That's why I just wondered, because I thought too, there wouldn't be any cost down the road for us there to say we needed to do
Yeah, I
some
mean,
things
there
to
would
this
be
lab as
costs
well.
there if we build our own, obviously we'd be buying new for that, so this is a significant savings, the fact that they've got a lot of this equipment that they're gonna bring in and allow us to use.
And staffing wise, I don't know if do we have staff over there in our lab? I
We don't
assume
staff our
not
lab
at all.
full-time, the police department does, which is one of the benefits, is that there will be people there, not 24/7, but through first and
Any
second
given time
shifts.
from, say, 6 o'clock in the morning till almost 5 o'clock at night, that'd be manned with at least 2 or 3 people there. Plus also you have a response time, he talked about the last meeting, response time, if you actually build something like this and you build it out in the county, your response time is gonna be what? 10 to
Could easily be
45 minutes?
20 plus minutes, yes.
So, this is a more secure facility, better facility, talk about setting stuff out to be processed, it's gonna get a lot quicker for you folks. So it's a win-win situation for you guys.
And I know
We're gonna
we're,
build it either way.
yeah, no, I know you are. It was just like, yeah, the benefit to us,
Yeah.
whether we wanna get in on this.
Yeah, and we want a partnership with you guys, because it's a long-term partnership that we can have, other things down the road. I mean, that's what we're looking for, not just this, but other things that the sheriff and chief can
Oh, and I think it was mentioned that this, I think the sketch you'd even provided was like 14,000 square feet. Maybe either someone stated or I read, whatever, that if we didn't partner with you, you would probably just build 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, we were looking between 8 and 10,000 square feet.
Yet, that, I guess the difference of 4,000 square feet is not the 50%. I mean, obviously, you're talking a little bit different numbers and things down too, we were too. But as far as the 1.5 million, when it looked like the partnership was going to be that, we aren't acquiring half the building or utilizing half the building, so
We're utilizing about 40% of it, just kind of at a rough estimate. I sent out the diagram last week of the new one.
Yeah.
I've actually got one here where I kind of drew a line roughly that shows what we'd be using on it.
Well, I remember there was
That's more for storage.
there's
Lab
the county
processing
storage.
part is
The lab
even more
processing is
so,
the
right?
big part,
That's
yes,
the
so
point, yes.
40% of the building, give or take, would be either solely ours or the shared part of ours. The biggest part of the building is gonna be their storage, just because of the amount of cases they have versus ours. I mean, that's also the cheapest part of the building, really. The lab is where the expense comes in, all the processing equipment. That's where we're gonna be, if we built 2 different buildings, we'd be doubling up on all that. They're getting over half of the building, but they're getting the cheap half of the building that's nothing but space and shelves. I mean, we're sharing the heart and soul of the building.
The meat and the bones is what we're.
With this being a new build, has there been any thought given to incorporating solar?
Yeah, we'll look at all those aspects with the architect and stuff. I know that the mayor's a big proponent of that, so that's something we'll definitely be looking at, so.
And I think I've asked this before, as far as I know, the large percentage of cases are Waterloo cases. I think maybe that was a number that was thrown about when we did our evidence intake on it 3 years ago or whatever that was. And I think at that point in time, there was no partnership or discussion of partnership then, but we thought that was gonna be something that would be utilized by everyone or shared by everyone in the county. I assume that relationship though, as far as the number of cases, you're still probably the 85 or 90% of the cases in Waterloo and a small percentage of county ones, correct? I don't think that, I know we talked about numbers and that didn't look like it was gonna be something.
That's
that
probably
could be
accurate,
provided.
but even for that 10 to 15% of the cases, we still need the same equipment to process.
Oh,
those
I'm not
crimes. Yeah.
disputing that at all, I just meant as far as the number of times that we'd be utilizing it and the times that would be available, just trying to get more information about making a decision on this.
Just trying to
That's all.
answer.
Yeah, well, I just meant, I knew we talked about, you and I, at least about the cases and the number of times used, since we weren't able, since we had to shut our lab, or the processing down because of the ventilation and that type of thing. And just thought how many times we had maybe utilized this and would be able to take advantage, in this case, of the.
Yeah, which the slide that I showed last week, average showed that we had several thousand over the last 5 years cases that'd be used. I think it came out to roughly 1 a day if we
One a
processed
day,
each
yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
crimes, yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are all here. I said this, for the most part, was really a discussion for us and Nate, because some of the questions that I was gonna ask was related to
the fact that this is a need that you're identifying that would be very critical to you and going forward. I feel strongly about that. And I've made the statement before, and I know you and I have discussed before too, that there was nothing said about this. It's unfortunate that it didn't come about until after our budget process was really completed. So there was nothing funded for '26 or even discussed about us doing something and participating. But there was also nothing in our 5-year plan showing that we were even going to approach something like this. And I think that's kind of what we look to a 5-year plan for, to help us plan. And I know, like I said, then Michelle looks at what we need to bond for and that type of thing. I guess what I was looking to you, and you touched on it a little bit today, so I'm very curious to see. When we look at your budget, any department that we ever work with, if they came to us with a project, and there's probably only one department I think maybe wouldn't do it, but if they said that we have this opportunity for this great project to partner or do, even if it's something like they could participate in, they, and would try to ask for the board's approval of it, they would come to us with some solutions in their own budget that would say, we think this is important and critical, and we looked in our budget, and this is how we'll identify helping to fund it, not just supervisors fund it. And so I wondered if you had taken any looks at or were willing to, I guess, to look at the items that you had in the 5-year plan or whatever, to see if there were dollars there. I know years ago we had the 60-40. I'll say years ago, because I said for years, I should say. We've had 60-40, and there were dollars available in there, and the sheriff's office would offer some of those. We've said now that's getting slim to none. But I just thought, if you look at your budget and the items that are included in there, and is this a priority? And if this is, are there others that could be pushed to a different timeline or?
I don't really have much for capital. I mean, I've got my
I know.
5 cars a year in there, which this year I gave up 2 of those to help out.
Wow.
Each of the last 2 years, we've slashed about $100,000 in operating from my budget. I honestly don't have that much more to slash for you. The 10,000 going forward, I said I'll be happy to eat that. I would love to tell you I'm gonna take something else out, but we're getting down to where there's not much left to take. And again, my capital projects, you've seen there's computer stuff that has to be refreshed. There's the cars that have to be rotated out every few years. And I've told you, and I fully understand kind of coming out of left field with this, but it kind of became an opportunity when the city hall sold and they had to move and stuff. If you'd asked these guys 6 months ago if they were getting a new lab and evidence building, they would have said, no, we're staying right where we're at. So Duncan pinched it to me. I brought it in because it's a great opportunity, even though it is a lot of money still. It's also a great opportunity to save a lot of money over something that needs to be done.
Well, and the opportunity and the sharing, the partnership part of it definitely is a great idea. And I appreciate that. I guess it's the cost and how we fund it and those types of things that become the issue. And we know we're limited on what those are. They're reserves for the most part. I know when the bonding, I think, was talked about last week, or a couple weeks ago, or whatever it was, something that would have to be on a ballot and in the fall and that type of thing. That's not the timeline, obviously, everybody's looking at either, so that's really probably unrealistic. I'm not sure if it would pass as well, so then there's that.
Right, absolutely, and I understand all that, and like I said, I get just coming in here asking for upwards of $1 million it's not exactly how we normally do it, and I can assure you that's not how I'll do it in the future, but in this case, it's kind of a one-off scenario, and if the opportunity presented itself, I had to take my shot at it. So.
Oh, no, I appreciate you bringing it to us, it's just timing of everything is very difficult. So
I think it's good to acknowledge too that this is a project that's been to the board a handful of times. So it's not a completely new project.
Right.
It's
kind
a
of,
need that
this
we've
instant came out of
understood
left
is.
field, but it's really been
Yeah.
on the field for
Yeah, it's a
4
need
years
we've
now.
recognized is here. It's just been a matter of whether, how we've been able to prioritize it.
it wasn't a need until we had ARPA dollars. There was nothing ever brought to this board until then.
It wasn't a need until there was,
I don't mean
until
a
it was
need.
discovered.
It was
that-
still a need, I
Yeah.
don't mean that. I mean, yeah, it was an opportunity, I think, because of taxpayer
Yeah, I mean, I
dollars
think
and other
it was still a
priorities.
need, but it was an
Yes.
opportunity that it came forward.
It was.
It was 4 years
Yeah,
ago.
and
Well, it
also
was a
ARPA
bit of a,
dollars
not
were an
audit, but
opportunity.
the facility audit that was a facility audit, something captured that
Well, that
facility
was,
audit was done after the fact, so.
That was when it was
like-
sent in for
yeah.
Baker Tilly, and then that's
Yeah.
what kind of brought everything else around.
Cause
So
that was part of the ARPA process,
Yeah.
going through the Baker Tilly Act.
But I think, as we go through strategic planning, right, and we're in that process, and we're talking about values as we continue to sort of shape that, right? Things that continue to come up are collaboration, innovation, and
Oh.
efficiency, all of those things. And-
That part I love.
Yeah, and I think, to the point, sometimes you don't have 18 months lead time to know that a collaboration is possible.
I'm not
And-
trying
and-
to beat him up, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get us to go to where it's comfortable. To me, 1.5 was utterly ridiculous. So I appreciate very much the fact that you're looking at other ways, other dollars amount. I know the board wasn't to 1.5 million either. So, but it's just, finding that, I guess, sweet spot, so to speak, that I love to say 100% I'm there.
And they've made a 50-year commitment.
They haven't
He's
made
gonna
it
be
yet.
he's gonna be the sheriff for 50 years.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Only if you're sitting there with.
I don't think that was his retirement plan, but yeah.
I want you to know, Jason especially, I want you to know I fully support this. It's the frustrating side when I'm trying to look ahead and spending, and it came after budget. That is the most frustrating part of this. As much as I wanna see it happen, it just, how we get the monies to do it is, right now, is gonna be the.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, we probably weren't this wasn't gonna be a tax project anyways. This was gonna be out of reserves, whether we heard this project in December, or if we heard it when we heard it. Right, like, truth of the matter is, we're gonna come out of reserves, if we believe in this project, we're gonna come out of reserve, it wasn't gonna impact our.
It still makes a difference because it would have been budgeted and it would have come out of reserves. We took, I don't know, 2 million or whatever we took out of reserves this year to impact the tax bills.
Mhm.
So it's like another, maybe not 1 million, but whatever those dollars amount, it would have been taxed for, included in there somewhere to be involved as part of it. So it's just that, it's not the easy sell, like, oh, just put it in your budget and we see it and we vote on it and we decided on it. So that's why I said it's after the fact makes it difficult. It's the amount that makes it difficult, but doesn't mean I don't wanna get there.
I think for maybe Mike's purposes, on this drafting of 2080 and having some ideas, as we said, I think it was last week or the week before, I think there's, I guess I would recommend starting at 750,000 as a, if you're needing a number in order to craft something, that doesn't mean you're gonna get full 100% agreement, but
And I can disclaim any of that this has been approved by the board.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think just to craft something and have a point to start, and then we can make a determination as a body on whether we're supportive of that.
There is some risk when you send over a draft with an amount like that in it. It has the effect of creating an expectation, even in spite of all the disclaimers I'll put on it. So I just want to, in case that would be lost on anybody, that is one of the effects that does happen as a result of throwing even a placeholder.
Well, part of this discussion too is board discussion in the fact that we are pretty, I wouldn't say vigorously working on whatever Brian Williams' office or the county attorney's office is. That would also be something, if it was done this year, would come out of reserves. So all of a sudden, it starts to be $1 million here and $1 million there, and now we're lower in reserves, and the plans for the next year's budget are without those. We might end up with revenue and be all right. We won't know that till later in the year, but making the decisions now that without those numbers and impact, and this year being a very different year kind of for us with grants and different things that could happen or not happen for us, and things that we may need to step into as a county to do. It's just a bad year for some of that stuff too going on, so nothing about your project. So it's, as some would say, not personal.
There's several other irons in the fire.
There's just other things, and so we have to decide to, because, we just can't keep using that, because it's been great to have it, and it certainly serves the taxpayers as well as us to make decisions to do as many of the services as we can, but it will be.
With that, I mean, what is your time frame? Because we understand, I mean, we're good with the 750. But we just need to realize what your time frame is to when to vote on this, and because we need to get rolling with our project.
Sure.
Either we need to keep it as it is now or scale it back down.
Mhm.
So I don't know what that timetable looks for you guys. I mean, I know you're a little leery of putting numbers in that and then going forward, but I mean, we understand that. We're not.
And I understand that, and I'm gonna
It's
make
not
that
binding
clear.
until you guys approve it, so we truly understand that.
I just want everybody to be aware that that's.
Right, yep.
You know, sometimes stating the obvious is beneficial.
It is. Well, because the number, even if the number we agreed to is the devil's in the details kind of a thing, and that 2080 is gonna maybe make you guys say no, no way, or us say no way.
Right.
And then the money would be, secondary almost because we couldn't arrive at an agreement on that. That's, so I don't know, it'd be fair to Mike.
I don't think there's any issue on the 2080 from
Our standpoint.
From our
I mean,
standpoint.
we have them, we do them all the time, that's how we interact with other government agencies in our aspects of law enforcement. So it's just.
We're genuinely excited to work together.
Yeah.
Mike can do anything you want, I guess.
Well, I suppose I can, but I.
No, I know, I just meant it sounds easier than I know it will be, but yeah, so.
It's always easier said than done. One other thing that's gonna come up as we work our way through this is how we're going to characterize that annual obligation, if indeed that's the route we're going. Because when you commit to something like that, the question is, well, is it just something we put in the 2080? I hope that it is, that it can be, or do we have to have some penalties, or do we have to have, something like that? So there's, that's gonna be a topic of discussion. It came up kind of peripherally when we met last week on it, but yeah. And by the way, and I realized I just sent that out yesterday, I mean, this all, we actually met, I think, Thursday last week. So if there's any other ideas that come up before we send something back, or at any point really, before anything's approved, make sure you contact me, contact Michelle, whoever's the appropriate person, so that we can try and work that in. As an example, by the way, Rich, I sent you an email actually earlier this meeting concerning an issue you had asked me about, so you'll have something to mull in that regard as well.
So, what are your thoughts then, Mike, as far as a draft, I guess, 2080 or something like that, even what?
Well, right now, my thought is that we stick with the framework we've been provided. We make the changes that were recommended in that email. Michelle and I, since sending that email, discussed an additional one that we think both parties need to disclose their sources of funding, and I think that's pretty standard boilerplate for something like this.
Sure.
We probably put in like David suggested we put in the 750 as a placeholder on this, and just make it clear that it's a placeholder.
Sure.
In regards to an annual payment, I'm probably I envision that being and I don't think there's anything prohibiting us from doing it this way, but I envision that being just a paragraph in the 2080 agreement that explains that the county's gonna have an obligation to do that. Now, that's not gonna say, who in the county does, that's between the board and the sheriff's office to decide that, but it sounds like, Dave's going to make that a part of his budget. And so then it would incorporate all of those other changes though, and I've got to go look back at them again. I don't believe I left a lot of question marks on those at this point. But it's an evolution. There's certainly, it wasn't a bad draft that we received from the city. There were just some provisions we disagreed with, and they knew there would be.
Well, and I took a quick look at what you'd sent yesterday, but I didn't dig into it.
It's kind of involved, I will say that. So by all means, as you go through that draft, if you have questions, contact me, call me, it's fine. So, yeah.
So Joseph, we got 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month, does that work in your plan, or you need something sooner than that?
I'm more than 2 weeks period. 2 weeks is basically what we have.
Okay.
We're on a timetable.
Yeah.
With moving it's not just our lab personnel, we also have other things we need to move. prior to us moving over to our new facilities once that gets going.
So maybe like at a May 13, unless we hit a real wall or something between now and then, and let you know, not just wait till then, but May 13 would be 2 weeks from today. And that won't be at that meeting. You, what? I won't be at that meeting, because I have a class that day.
I will be not at that meeting either, but.
We do have further discussion that we need to have internally about the annual payment, because, well.
If we were to do that.
Correct, we need to work through, that would be the thing I'm concerned about.
What would be your timetable, Michelle?
It's really, I don't know how fast Mike can.
I think a 2-week turnaround is definitely possible, given that we've accomplished so much just in the meeting last week, and I reduced it into written descriptions in the email that was sent yesterday. The issue is going to be what additional concerns do board members come up with on their own, questions that they have, and how do we address those. Possibly something that may make sense is at some point next week, maybe later in the week, if schedules allow for it, having a special session for a work session on that, where we can kind of flesh through this stuff together. I don't know that Tuesday isn't too soon, but you can put it on there, but I'm actually talking where we go through, it could take a while.
Yeah.
Go through this thing paragraph by paragraph and discuss what each one of those means, because that's how Nate, Michelle, and I did it last week. It worked pretty efficiently, but it's one of those things that helps ensure that everyone's on the same page as we go forward with this. But the obviously big elephant in the room is how are you going to fund it, and whether you're on the same page in that regard. The other paragraphs are about looking out for the county's interests, and this, of course, the city's going to have their interests in it. I think this is very much a cooperative agreement. I want to make that clear. So I don't think anybody's acted in any kind of bad faith.
Is there anything in that you've made corrections that we can send over to Marty to look at and then send back to you sooner? Or do you want to meet first with them, or?
I could probably put some things into an email to Marty this week, probably tomorrow, if not today. It's just as long as the board's okay with that, with those non-cost suggestions I made in there, and those things I think are pretty reasonable. I don't think
Didn't you say you had something else to add to it, though? You gave us these, then you have another.
The other item that we would like to add that Michelle and I discussed this just this morning, and Michelle emailed me about it last evening, was just putting a paragraph in that requires both parties to disclose their funding sources. That helps to ensure that we've got the funding we're gonna need on both sides. Another item that's, well, I'm not gonna get into the other specific items, the board has them, and if there's any concerns the board has about me disclosing that, any of that, I would prefer an email sometime today than I send the email probably tomorrow.
Well, I understand trying to get it to them as soon as possible, but I just thought too, if it eliminates any problems, not sending it to them first, and at least letting us see it first and then send it or whatever, and then if we don't respond, we don't respond, but you've tried.
That's a good idea. I will try to get that to you at least by tomorrow morning sometime, all right? Yeah, because and I think that makes sense. That way the board has an opportunity to look it over. We still get it to the city by, I think, Thursday. That gives the board about 24 hours to look it over. All of this is a lot faster than we ordinarily have to make big decisions like this.
So as far as the 13th, it sounds like Supervisor Hall won't be here.
I will not be here.
How about the 12th if we're doing a work session?
You mean?
I'm also not here the 12th. I'm coming back on the 13th.
Okay.
So I mean, if we did this at the meeting on the 20th, is that?
But can you push it, we can push it another week.
To the 20th?
Yeah.
Okay. That helps. You're going on the 20th?
Well, we can do work sessions on it. Don't get on me. He caused it.
Yeah.
It's all him. We were supposed to, yeah. Well, we can do work sessions anytime, so, don't have to hang
Let me look at
Tuesdays.
my flight. I might be virtual, but I might actually
No, I don't,
Be
we don't wanna
in
try
between.
that, no, I mean.
Because
that's
if
up
3
to
weeks
you.
make it actually probably would actually work better, so then we can work a lot more of these issues out.
We need to know.
But I will still try to get that email together.
Sure, sure, I just meant, it's what you guys are comfortable with timeline to get that prepared, to have the other things as well. We don't wanna set a date prematurely, I guess, either, and then everybody goes, sorry, we're not ready for that, so.
No,
We're trying to move
I
this.
think having dates in mind is a good idea.
Yeah, so,
You're gone the 20th,
yeah,
or you're on.
which I can Zoom too, but I prefer not.
Yeah, 19th?
But yeah, I'm gone then, yes, yes. I'm on 14th to the 22nd.
Oh,
You get back.
so you
I
wanna see
leave.
you, yeah.
So that's what I thought we could do before, if there's a time that we think works, like the week of the 5th.
I leave the 7th.
Oh, never mind. You and I need to schedule and call. Okay. You leave the 7th.
I have no trips planned, so leave that one alone.
How about,
The girls are done with cheer after the 13th, so, well, use my calendar.
well. Were you planning a virtual one? Or, and the time you are
On
done?
the,
'Cause
on the
you're done.
13th,
That's the only, that's the date.
on the 13th,
You're coming
my
back.
connection to Chicago lands at 9 o'clock, so I presumably just take the call from the airport.
Well, I was just thinking we could do a work session later in the afternoon.
Michelle,
Are you wanting to work session, or are you talking?
Well, we can do work session, but with discussion, possible board action or board action or whatever, work
Because
session.
that's what
You gotta get it.
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
You need
your
action,
not your-
Yeah, we
Yep.
could, that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about too, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, is a board action.
But
how are the 8 weeks looking?
that's not for you.
They're bad.
You say you lose that one.
No, not good. 9th is open. You're gonna be gone.
I will dial in on the 13th. I mean, that's,
Well, I was gonna say, if we moved it later, you said you're coming back.
I
we'll
get
move
back,
it
I
later
get back
in
at
the day.
like 2:30. I've got. So
Okay, okay.
I can jump on Zoom and.
Michelle has a conflict on the 13th.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, we said the 13th was not good.
Can you do the 20th? No, you said you're gone.
Mhm.
You prefer to be in person, but. I know.
If all we get all this done, for the most part, that'd just be the vote.
Can we-
Then that's one.
So let's do a work session on the 13th. Without, to get the 2080 language sort of ironed out, and then a final vote on the 20th? A yay or nay?
Does that work?
Yep.
Except for,
And I can help take lead on that as long as I'm gonna try to go with Michelle ahead of that meeting, because her input is critical, she's not gonna be able to participate.
Yeah,
At the same
do
time,
it.
they can have a work session.
but we do think that's realistic timeline, the 13th, just to, if everything works out, language, 2080, us, on funding.
It just, I mean, if I get a, if I get a whole bunch on the late afternoon of the 12th, that's gonna impact that discussion, but again, it's a work session, so we can have that discussion, including what comes in late. And there should be plenty of time to get that thing inked out by the 20th then. So I think having that week in, a week in between the 13th and the 20th is gonna
Yeah.
be plenty of time at that point.
So we got work session the 13th, vote on the 20th.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else on that one? Any other travel arrangement we need to talk through?
Just so easy, just a vote, right? Just a vote.
Fair enough. Alright.
Yeah.
Very good. Do you have any other reports or information from the board?
See it one.
Just to let you know, we finished up, I did 4 township meetings this past week. There was one issue that came up Saturday morning with Cedar Township dealing with cemeteries. Sent out an email with that, and the staff look at that. And again, I just want to say, appreciate all the staff jumped up and helping in that process. So hopefully have some good resolutions out of that. answer people's questions.
Alright, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 See you.